Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another great episode of Top Rope Takes. Today, the war has been settled, the dust has cleared, War Games is over, and we have a winner, and we are here to talk about it all. I'm Jason Marcus alongside Willie Thrill. Will, how's it going, buddy?
It's going well. Yes, we just, you know, wrapped up War Games, and now we got a huge couple of months ahead for WWE as they make their return to NBC prime time with Saturday Night's Main Event, then immediately going to Netflix, then
Mm-hmm.
going to the Royal Rumble, and
Yep.
we got Elimination Chamber in the Sky Dome, and then we have WrestleMania. It's like we're jam packed with stuff, and it all started last Saturday with War Games, which apparently people thought was not that great. I really enjoyed it. I'm excited to talk about it with you.
Yeah, I thought it was an okay show. I think what really hurt it to me was the lack of I feel like wrestling fans have just been conditioned for like a big like go home segment to end most of these shows. And I think this one was more subtle than what we've been getting recently in the past. And I think that's why, like, maybe there's some discourse around the event of not being like a top tier pay per view. But like you said, we'll get right into it. Let's start with right at the beginning, right? I feel like that's probably a good place to start. Let's start with the women's war games match. So we had the team babyface versus the team heel coming out on top, we had the baby faces, the team of Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, Bailey, Io Sky, and Naomi, defeating the heel team of Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez, Nia Jax, Tiffany Stratton, and who am I missing, Will?
Who did you say? Do you remember Candice LeRae?
And Candice LeRae. Poor Candice.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's kind of fitting, isn't it?
I guess so.
So we had the heels come out. I mean, excuse me, we had the baby faces come out on top after Rhea Ripley hit a riptide on Liv Morgan through a table to pick up the win for her squad here. I thought this obviously feels like it's going to continue the program between Rhea and Liv for the women's world title. So for anyone who thought that that program was over or that they had seen enough, got bad news for you. I think we're getting more of it.
Yeah, 100% coming out of this. And this was interesting because I got to say, just as an overall note for this show, this was probably since SummerSlam the most locked in I've been to a wrestling show where I was just paying attention to everything. Like there's some
Mm-hmm.
matches like in like Bash of Berlin or Bad Blood where I was kind of just like, or yeah, that was it. So like where I was kind of just like, some matches I'd pay attention to closely, other matches I'd kind of have on the
Yeah.
background, not pay attention to every little detail. This show I paid attention up and down the card. So when I did that, it really struck me how abysmal this opening part of this War Games was. This may have been the worst wrestling I've seen in WWE all year. Like it was
Wow.
bad. Bailey and Nia start this thing off, and immediately they are like not on the same page at all. Like there's like Bailey's like ducking like punches that Nia's not throwing. Nia's kind of like miscommunicate. You could tell like there's parts where they just didn't know what they were doing, so they would like
Yeah.
hold on to like a whiplash way too long to just try to be like, okay, do this, do this. It was kind of like it was tough. And then Candice LeRae is like the next entrant, and she spends just a little too long trying to find something underneath the apron that for the next like five or six people to come down the ring, they are just trying to find whatever Candice LeRae was unable to find in the ring. I don't know if you noticed this, but like
Yeah.
every person that came out would just spend a little too much time looking for something under the ring. And it was always like a chair would come out and I'd be like, well, it's not that. And like, I
Mm,
still don't know what that item was or if they ever got to it,
yeah.
but it clearly felt like there was something missing in this match that they were trying to get from the back of the ring. In fact, one person took so long. I think it was Naomi. One person took so long, or man, it might have been Candace. There was one person who took really long with getting the chairs where Nia just throws this horrible chair shot, like at Naomi. And
Yeah.
it was just like biggest, like, boop, like just a little tap right on the back. And I
She's
was
been
like,
called reckless in the past, Will, so she's trying to clean up her
I guess
image.
so. She's going the other way with it then. She's just, being as soft as possible. Doesn't want to, get that
Yeah.
reputation again.
Hmm.
So that was a little tough, but I did feel to, not dwell on this match for too long. Once all of the entrants were in the match, this, really turned up. We didn't mention Rhea had coming out with the awesome mask at the
Yeah.
beginning. I thought that was really cool stuff, like a really cool design. And then Liv gets in the ring with the bat. It looked like she was going to walk away. She comes into the ring, and that's when Rhea takes off the mask. Really cool face paint underneath.
Hmm.
And we get a little bit of brawling. The War Games begins. But the thing that saved this match for me was Io Sky doing an insane moonsault with the difficulty to do that moonsault without seeing anything and just
Yeah.
trusting that you're going to land on people. Nuts. And then Tiffany also in stereo did a swanton on the other side. I thought that was cool. Then we got to a part that was a little interesting where Tiffany had the briefcase hidden in the trash can. I don't know about you, but I was like confused as to like what does this mean if she does cash it? Like
Yeah. Like what?
they teased this last year with Damian Priest. This year I was, still like wondering like what does happen if she did happen to cash in. We didn't get to see what happens as Io Sky came with the fire extinguisher in a
Hmm.
really cool like magic trick almost where she hits this fire extinguisher, the smoke settles, and Raquel Rodriguez is handcuffed out of nowhere. Like it was almost like underneath the smoke, you know, she got handcuffed. It was really
Hmm.
cool, like visual, because you didn't really see what was going on. She gets handcuffed, which then led to Rhea Ripley hitting the Riptide onto Liv Morgan. Overall, I think the last part of the match saved the beginning, but man, that beginning was really tough to watch and not a great way to start off the night.
Yeah. I think the match as a whole felt very much kind of like parallel to the booking in a sense of it. There was no real cohesion, right? Like there was just it was a bunch of different parts thrown together for the sake of a match and getting everybody on the card, and that is what the match felt like. It's my biggest complaint with this match and the War Games match, the men's War Games match that we'll talk about later. It's that I don't like I've never been a fan of when WWE has been so married to a concept where they shoehorn stuff into it, right? Whether it's a pay per view that's named after a stipulation, so they just shoehorn, like a TLC match or a Hell in a Cell match that doesn't need it. And they're kind of doing that here with War Games. Although the caveat is that specifically on the men's side that we'll get to later, War Games did call for it. But this idea that there needs to be five on each side, I think, is a little ridiculous. And like they could have come up with a better story uh, for the women here. I don't even necessarily know if they needed a women's war games match. Again, I still stand by that a 5-on-5 traditional would have been better because just from a narrative perspective, like these people aren't on the same page and it showed in the ring. So, yes, the finish was good. Io Sky stole the show like she usually does. And I think it's the right result. It's the right finish to continue the story along, but it felt clunky. And I think that's a product of the booking more than anything else.
Yeah, you're 100% right. We were talking about this last week when we were doing our predictions. This could have easily been a 5-on-5 match. I don't think you need if you could do war games, but it doesn't have to be the men's war games. I hope that this is a sign, especially the past few years, that they can ahead of time, if they're going to do war games, build a storyline in the women's division
Yeah.
that calls for war games when the time comes.
Yeah. So that was the women's War Games match. So another thing that kind of gets lost in all that too is that Rhea Ripley, obviously, as we mentioned, she's the one who gets the win over Liv, and assuming is going to continue her program with her. But Io Sky is the current number one contender, and they made a point to mention that in the post show conference.
Same
So I don't
thing.
know. Do we have a date for that? Is that Saturday night's main event? Is that a Raw?
I would guess so. I would guess Saturday night's main event, Sky, Liv Morgan. They could also main event a Raw with it, either one. But I do think it does kind of push it to the side a little more,
Mm-hmm.
where like the focus is now on Rhea and Liv. Like, because I think Rhea wants the championship more than like I can't see like if Io Sky beats Liv, does Rhea still want that win over Liv and then go after the title, or is it a case of like, no, I'm just going straight for Io Sky, forget Liv? I'm not
Right.
sure.
I don't think WWE knows. I think this has kind of been a very muddy storyline. It would have been an interesting finish to kind of have Rhea hit the Riptide and then have Io be like the one to cover her or something like that. Like plant some seeds of tension between Rhea and Io over this women's world title. I think that would have been a nice little beat there. But they played good. Um, Also, a little confused about Iu's position on the card because she's obviously getting babyface reactions, but she's still part of a heel faction at this point. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Could we
Are they
see her?
heel?
I
Because
mean,
they've been going up
Kyrie,
against the Pure Fusion
right?
Collective, so I feel like
Yeah,
they're more on the face side. It just
I
feels weird. There wasn't like a big turn, I guess. That was like
yeah,
obvious. It was just more so like, well, people like these guys, so we're just going to put them on the face side without even like making like note of how
yeah.
they're good guys now.
I guess so. I guess their faces now. They just feel like heels to me. Waiting for Asuka to come back though to really bring some life back into that story because right now, I mean, maybe Dakota Kai and Kyrie go after the tag titles or something, but not a ton going on for them right
Yeah, either Asuka or I hope by Rumble time, if they're confident in her, that we could see Julia get called up and maybe
now.
inject life
Oh, there you go.
into this group because they definitely need it. They're definitely lower mid carders at this point. But I definitely think this match helped Io Sky's profile go.
Julia versus Io at WrestleMania 41. Did you put a bet on that one?
I would not because I don't have faith in WWE booking a women's
Copy.
match that is not a championship match.
Fair
But I'd
enough.
love to see it. I'd love to see if they did like a women's showcase match where not like tag team, but like if they had like a ladder match for like one of the mid card titles that they introduced.
Mhm.
I think that would be kind of fun.
Yeah, I agree. This is kind of going off on a little bit, but I've always thought like they did the One Evolution show, the all women show in like 2018, and I guess just from ticket sales, like it wasn't financially lucrative enough for them, but like they're making so much money now, like you would think that they would just run that, even if it was like a network special or something. I don't know,
I
but
think with the introduction of these mid card titles, we could see that pay per view happen at some point down the line
I mean,
once again.
there's so many women's titles now. You have two women's championships, two mid card titles, tag titles, NXT on there. Like it's time.
Yeah, as long as you book compelling matches that people want to see, you could definitely sell a show on solely the women, but they have to put in the effort at the same time.
Yeah. All right. Well, that gonna does it for our women's war game match. Up next, we had the match for the WWE United States Championship. We had the champion LA Knight, yeah, defending against the new, or I should say, returning Shinsuke Nakamura. And Will, if you had to poll the audience going into this match, I don't know how many of them predicted this result correctly because LA Knight's U.S. title reign has not been that long. It's not been that impressive, if you ask me. It's about 50 wins over Santos Escobar, and I couldn't tell you who else. Um, but Shinsuke Nakamura gets the win clean, and he's your new U.S. champion. Uh, a good decision for Shinsuke Nakamura's behalf, a questionable booking decision for LA Knight's behalf, which begs the question, should these two have been in a program together to begin
Well, I'll start by saying this was, as someone who thought LA Knight was going to win, I still think there's a decent portion of the audience that might have considered Shinsuke winning because of this new presentation or the fact that, why would you have this guy return and just lose? That's what we were questioning when we were doing our
with? Right.
predictions. Why would you have this guy come back and lose? Now, it's just because of what we've seen in Shinsuke's booking in the past that kind of led us to believe, okay, this is just another challenger for LA Knight to overcome and then
Mm,
it'll lead to whatever. But I actually think this was the better move. I think Shinsuke not only just winning, but dominating throughout the
yeah.
match. Like that was the story of the match was Shinsuke dominating. And I think it adds a little more to LA Knight's character with him losing this early. I think if they can really take this loss, yes, on the surface it might seem questionable, but with this new Shinsuke, they can kind of tell a story of LA Knight doubting himself because he's a very confident guy. He's, won the US title. He's,
Mm,
got the adulation of the fans. I think
good word.
him losing and losing in this way, um, I think you could tell a really cool story of him trying to fight back to getting that United States Championship again. It adds a new layer to LA Knight's character. I don't think he loses a lot in this. I think this match is more about the Shinsuke win than the LA Knight loss. With that being said, you can still do something with LA Knight's loss. But
Right.
when Shinsuke came out with that presentation, man, it was on SmackDown and at Survivor Series. I'm like, man, this guy, if he wins the title, I'm not upset. Like this
Yeah.
guy is awesome. I think this could really be a chance for him to show what we've kind of been wanting to see since he made his debut on the main roster. Just like a really cool, you know, badass character that
Mhm.
people can get into, face or heel. And I think the video packages he was doing with LA Knight, I love the video package before this matchup. I think his win is a good signifier that they'll do something. I guess my question is, what does this mean for Shinsuke for leading into WrestleMania season? Like, what do we think he holds on to the title till WrestleMania? And if that's the case, who are they going to put up there that's going to be a high profile match at WrestleMania?
Yeah, again, I think it's one of those cases until I'll believe it when I see it. I just don't have a ton of faith in the ability to book Shinsuke Nakamura properly. I mean, if anyone can do it, it's Triple H, right? Because we saw him do it in NXT. I have a feeling that LA Knight's going to regain this United States Championship back sooner rather than later. Um, I just because like to your point, like what do you do with Shinsuke Nakamura? It's hard because it's hard, not because their booking's incompetent, but like you put him up against Carmelo or Andrade, like it'll be a great match, but how compelling of a story is that? Um, I, I don't know how many other people on the roster I'm dying to see Shinsuke Nakamura get in the ring with. I think you ride this story out for a little bit, but I do think LA Knight gets it back sooner rather than later. I think he's the bigger star. Um, I mean, I think it was a must win situation for Shinsuke because again, to what you were kind of already saying, like a loss at Survivor Series here, he was dead in the water. He might as well just packed it up because you can only go like a lot. It would have killed everything. So definitely the right call. Very interested to see where his booking goes from here, but I would not put a ton of faith that this is a long title run.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think if they don't make it last till WrestleMania, then it's just I feel like it's the same case as if he were to just lose that Survivor Series, where it's like if he has a short title run, then really what was the point of this run?
Mm-hmm.
Like just so he could have a cool few months and then because as soon as he loses this title, if they don't build him up properly to be like a threat and make it seem like it's a mountain to overcome Shinsuke, then whoever wins the title off of him is not going to seem like that big of a win. And if he loses the title in that short amount of time, it's going to make him seem like he was just the same Shinsuke we've known for the past few years. That hasn't really
Right.
been doing much in WWE. So I think if they build him up properly, give him some big wins, have him, beat all the guys on SmackDown, then, later on you can introduce a new baby face that will finally be the one to overcome Shinsuke. Then I think that's compelling. We talk all the time about a guy like Obafemi maybe coming
Mm,
up to the roster and being the one to take down a dominant Shinsuke. That would be a compelling storyline. Or any of those NXT baby faces that they have down there that are like a Trick Williams, perhaps. And then you could have Trick Williams transition to a feud with Carmelo Hayes seamlessly. He comes
yeah.
up on the roster. He wins a singles title before Carmelo, who's been on the roster for a year now. I think that would be a cool opponent. So I think if they could hold out Shinsuke for a bit and then give it to one of those up and coming NXT guys, that would be the way to go. But like you said, I could also easily see this being like a storyline for LA Knight to kind of try to regain his confidence and regain the championship. If they do go that route, I would hope that while they're doing that, they build up Shinsuke to where an LA Knight regaining the championship actually means something versus him
Yeah.
just getting the title back.
I will say this too about Shinsuke. I think on the whole, he's actually better as a babyface than a heel. I think the best version of Shinsuke is the version we saw in NXT, where like people just got so behind him because he was a great wrestler who puts on great matches and is almost like a silent assassin. The gimmicky stuff with like the vignettes and the promos in Japanese with the subtitles, like I always go back to last year when his stuff with Cody and like the Nightmare Before Christmas stuff that was just so cringy to me. Like I hate that. So hopefully with this new presentation they don't go down that road. But I do think he's better as a babyface. So hopefully they kind of switch him soon. And again, I can't think of anyone on the roster that I'm dying to see Shinsuke Nakamura up against. So good luck to the bookers for trying to get us invested.
Yeah, and I do think we did talk about this over text a bit, where like I do think that if he does have a solid run as a heel, that people will want to root for him if he does make that turn as a babyface. I
Mhm.
think if he doesn't have that much great of a run with this championship, then people aren't going to be as invested whether he's a heel or a babyface. So
Ooh, can I give you a top rope take?
sure.
Shinsuke Nakamura, does this lead into a program with Jimmy Uso to try and get Jimmy Uso over as a singles competitor? Is it his turn now?
I wouldn't hate that. I think that would be an interesting angle to take. I think he definitely, we'll talk about it later in the War Games match, but I think he could definitely break out as a single star on his own. Um, and I think it'd be a compelling story to tell. So yeah, I wouldn't hate it. I think it would be a pretty cool match for, any one of these major shows coming up.
All righty, you heard it here first. If I'm right, WWE, you get my
I'll
number.
give you credit for that one.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. Next up on the show, we had another match for a mid card title. We had a triple threat match for the Intercontinental Championship. We had the current Intercontinental Champion, Braun Breaker, defending against Sheamus and Ludwig Kaiser. This was a hard hitting, fast paced match. I think everybody expected just as much, and boy, did they deliver, Will. Great match, but in the end, Braun Breaker defends and retains his Intercontinental Championship. Sheamus did not pick up the win here, although at many points it looked like he was going to. I don't know if they're going to continue this program between Braun and Sheamus, but regardless, Braun comes out on top. He looks dominant, and we are in the era of the badass.
Yes, sir. This was my match of the night. Clearly, this match was just awesome from start to finish, and it really picked up throughout. There was a great, really, when this match picked up was later on when like Braun and Sheamus were just going back and forth throughout, and Sheamus lands the bro kick, and you think it's it, but then ultimately, uh, Ludwig screws Sheamus, similar to how Drew did in that
Mm-hmm.
triple threat, last year's WrestleMania. So I thought that was awesome because it was close. Like when I was watching it, I was like, oh man, this could be
Mm-hmm.
it. And then Ludwig pulled the ref out of the ring. Ludwig then hit some crazy shillelagh shots that you see like the welts grow on the back of Sheamus, which I thought was great. And then Sheamus hits this step up knee, or like the pump knee that
Mm-hmm.
he's hit in a few matches, kind of like a bro kick knee.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought for sure, like, this is how you do it. Like, Sheamus gets it. This crowd was hot throughout this match. And when he hit Ludwig Kaiser with the knee, I'm like, oh shit, like, this could be it. But Ludwig Kaiser kicks out
Mm-hmm.
before. And then immediately you get like, no, or not soon after, Braun Breaker hits an awesome spear on Ludwig Kaiser, like one of the best spears he's hit since coming
Mm-hmm.
on the main roster. Just complete bulldozer to Ludwig Kaiser, and then hits another one on Sheamus for the win. I enjoyed this throughout, but really those near falls and the spears at the end really was just a nice topping for this
Yeah.
match.
I want to give some flowers to Ludwig Kaiser here because he so easily could have killed himself, like killed his momentum with a bad performance. And instead, he did the exact opposite. He really elevated himself to a legitimate mid card threat to any of these titles. And I'm so happy for him because he is a great talent both in the ring and on the mic. I really think we're going to get a Ludwig Kaiser Gunther program sooner rather than later, um, because that I think WWE is in the business of elevating new stars now, which is not something I could have said for 15 years, but now they are. And I think Ludwig Kaiser's right up there with one of the most potential and probably the next up as far as big storylines coming soon.
Do you think he fights Gunther before or after WrestleMania or at WrestleMania?
I think that this is going to be a post WrestleMania fallout.
Okay.
So when I say soon, I don't necessarily mean super, super soon, but I see a world. I don't think they tarnish Gunther at all until WrestleMania. I think Gunther is a cornerstone of this WrestleMania 41 card, and I think Kaiser will be in his corner all the way up to. But if Gunther loses at WrestleMania 40, look out for a babyface Gunther run when when Kaiser kicks him out.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I don't think it'll have to be till after WrestleMania 41 where they do the Ludwig Kaiser Gunther match. But yeah, it would be interesting if they. I'm just curious if they do that before, if they wanted to shift the World Heavyweight Championship somewhere else, if that would be then Gunther's program. But I do think we can agree that I don't think Gunther will lose until WrestleMania 41,
Yeah.
if that is the case.
Can I give another top rope take?
Sure, full of them
So
today.
I know. Listen, so looking at the roster, we've seen WWE put an emphasis recently on going international, really hammering home this global brand, right? We see it with the PLEs. They're going to France, they're going to Canada, they're going to Australia, they're going to Germany and all these different places. And you look at the roster and it kind of reflects that. We got people from all over in Europe and Asia and whatever. I think we are going sooner rather than later going to get a modern day WWE European Championship. It was big in Triple H's career and in his development as far as like stuff with DX. He was also a former European champion, I believe, and I think Kaiser would be a really great contender, somebody who could elevate like a lower mid card title if they wanted to go that route. I think he would be a great idea, great champion for that.
Yeah, I think if you do that, you have to get rid of one of the mid card titles. I really don't want to see more than two mid card titles, especially now that they just introduced two mid card titles for the women's division. You're
Yeah,
going to have to allot a lot of time for all of those championships. And you don't want to do like the AEW thing where it's like we just have championships at the wazoo and we got ROH belts and
right.
all that stuff where you're just confused as to who's the champion. I think WWE is slowly getting to that problem with like having a speed championship that they
Yeah,
don't advertise anywhere and introducing a crown jewel championship that means nothing. So I think adding a European championship, I think even if it does get the same time as a US or Intercontinental Championship, I just don't think it's needed now that they have two more women's mid card titles that they need to start. If they want to
yeah.
take these titles seriously, they need to give time to.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think my only counter to that argument would be for AEW specifically. My issue is really not with the number of titles. It's the fact that the titles that they do have no differentiation between like what they stand for. Like what the Continental Champion versus the International Champion versus the TNT Champion. Like, what's the lane there, right? Like, I don't like they occupy the same space for me. Whereas the European champion, I feel like in this theoretical WWE universe, yes, it would be a lower mid card title, but I think it would be exclusively for your international superstars to like gain exposure.
I guess so. I mean, I would just push back a little bit on the Continental Championship aspect where that does have its own stipulation where at the end of the year you have to compete in this tournament
Mm-hmm.
to fight for the championship. But I feel like it would be a similar case where the TNT and the International Championship are kind of like interchangeable. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like a European Championship would fall underneath that category. It'd be weird that there's a championship exclusively for foreign people, but
Mm-hmm.
yet they could also challenge for the United States Championship, which is
Right.
open to anyone, as we see with Shinsuke being a
Yeah, yeah.
United States champion.
The idea is fleshing out, but I stand by that. It's very likely to happen, I
You
think, in
never
the
know. I
next
wouldn't
5
be
years.
mad if like Ludwig Kaiser down the line won like the United States Championship and then renamed it the European Championship, similar to what we saw with like MJF in
Yeah.
the International Championship. So I could definitely see that happening down the line. But I just think if you don't want to overwhelm yourself
Right.
with too many mid card titles.
Yeah. I'd have to go back and do my research and figure out why the European Championship even existed in the first place in the 2000s because I don't think I
Well,
don't
they
know.
the WCW had the US Championship, so I feel like once the European Championship was gone, they felt comfortable bringing in like a United States Championship. And there was also like a period where the Intercontinental Championship wasn't a thing, and
Yeah.
they brought it back. So I feel like they've gone through their phases of what the mid card titles have been.
Hmm.
So now it's kind of been established,
Yeah.
since that merger that, we have a US championship and Intercontinental Championship. And then any other titles they've tried to introduce over the years have clearly fallen out of
Yeah.
favor, like the Cruiserweight Championship, the 24/7 Championship. Like these things are tertiary titles that don't mean anything.
Yeah. All right. Well, next after this, we had the match for the World Heavyweight Championship. We had the champion, the Ring General Gunta, defending against Damian Priest in a good fight, but at the end, Gunther retains the world title. Finn Balor kind of gets his licks in and helps Gunther win by attacking Damian Priest, although Gunther was not very receptive because he kicked Finn in the face. So we have that to look forward to on Raw to see the fallout from all of this. But what are your thoughts on this match, Will?
I don't have a lot of thoughts, honestly. I thought it was a fine match, but at no point did I think Priest was winning the World
Mm,
Heavyweight Championship. Another Finn interference. We kind of speculated that during our predictions, so not really much of a surprise. I guess I'm more intrigued as to where Gunther goes from here, who his WrestleMania 41 opponent might be. We've talked about it being maybe Goldberg or even John Cena if he wants to go for like a high profile guy, or does he lose this title beforehand and still go on to face one of those guys just without a title?
mm,
It's interesting to see because I definitely think there's a world where the World Heavyweight Championship moves on to a bigger program where you get that as a main event of either night one or night two of WrestleMania. And I don't think he gets that main event unless he's facing a guy like Goldberg or John Cena. So
right.
we'll
I
see.
think I think his next challenger will be Seth Rollins. I think we're gonna find that out on Raw.
Okay. That's interesting. But we'll get into that as we talk about war games where, certain things might be headed for WrestleMania. But
True. All right. I don't have really too much thoughts on this match either, other than right result, fine match, like you said. Yeah, we'll see where the Damian Finn stuff goes, but Gunther's your world champion, as he should be. And then lastly, we'll wrap this up by talking about the men's War Games match, the main event. You had the OG Bloodline with CM Punk versus the new Bloodline with Bronson Reed. And it was a banger, as a Celtic Warrior may say. Um, Great match. The biggest thing from this match, I felt like, were the storytelling elements that teasing the Roman Reigns and CM Punk are not on the same page. And that was kind of the biggest story at the end of the show. CM Punk going to Paul Heyman saying, when I need to cash in that favor, I'm going to be asking for it. And we don't know what that favor is yet, Will, but any speculation?
yeah, well, it was a lot of things because I would say for most of the match, they weren't on the same page. But there was a moment here where Bronson Reed was going to go for the biggest tsunami in history. And Punk did save Roman from going to the table. That
Mm,
comes in later in the match. But let me just recap a couple points here.
yeah.
New Bloodline coming out together. They looked awesome as a crew. Like
Mm,
I don't know if this is the last time we'll see Bronson Reed with the new Bloodline, but they might have to commit to him being in the new Bloodline because he just looked awesome standing there together. There
mm,
was a moment where the OG Bloodline were making their individual entrances. Punk comes out third after Sami Zayn and Jimmy Uso, and he pie faces Bronson Reed. And I don't know if you
mm,
noticed on the feed, it went black, but Michael Cole made a call like, oh, CM Punk always creating
mm,
controversy. And apparently, from there's reports that this was not a scripted moment. Like
mm,
Punk really just came out there and improvised it. If that is the case, I don't think it's super egregious or like, oh my gosh, Punk's really going off the script. It kind of fit in the moment. And I kind of thought it was a nice little added touch of like, that is what CM Punk would do. He's an
mm.
agitator. Like
Yeah.
he would pie face the guy that's in the cage and not allow them to hit back. That's kind of who CM Punk is, good or
Yeah.
bad. That's fitting with the character. Um, during this match when Bronson Reed and Jacob Fatu were in the ring at the same time, I'm like, this is a money tag team for down the line. Like
Ooh.
imagine these two like just tearing up the tag division. Like I feel like that they were a fun little team there for a little bit. I love the spot when it's Roman, Sammy, and Punk in the cage.
Mm.
Punk looks like he's gonna leave, but Roman puts out his hand as
Yes.
Sami Zayn goes because not only was it a great moment of like Punk and Roman aren't on the same page, and Sammy's kind of like, is everything all right? Like going in. But it was
Mm.
also like a nice callback to the first War Games match that they were in when Roman puts the hand out for Jay
Mm.
and being like, no, get Sammy. And but in that case, it was more like Sammy, go prove yourself. This one was like, no, Punk, like you got to wait your turn.
Yeah.
So I like that. And then later on when Roman seems like he's gonna get in the ring when the bloodline's clearly dominating the match. Punk, shoves him out of the way, comes down to the ring. It looks like, oh my gosh, it's like he's gonna get jumped by four wild Samoans. Get out of the way. Brings in the toolbox, which we saw at Hell in a Cell, and starts going to town. Love the spot when he hits the bulldog on Fatu, and Fatu pops up immediately and gives him like this awesome pop-up Samoan drop. I thought that was really cool. It pops me every time that Jacob Fatu no sells anything because he just makes
Yeah.
it look so awesome. Um, then there was this part of the match really frustrated me. It was like, this is my one nitpick for this match. Solo gets in the ring and he locks up the cage. And the announcers start going, "Oh, he's going to lock up the cage. How is Roman going to get in the
Yeah.
cage?" And I'm like, "Look, dude, there's no roof. There's like, you made this war game so babyfied. There's no
Yeah.
roof. What do you mean how is he going to get in the cage? He's just going to climb the fence." So Roman comes out of the ring and they're like, "Oh, well, he can't get in." And so he starts to climb the fence and Corey Graves goes, "Wow." And I'm literally like, it was like Hogan lifting up Andre the way he reacted to this. I'm like, it's Roman Reigns climbing a fence. Like, I could do this. Like, I could
Yeah.
literally climb the fence like Roman did.
Yes.
It's not that super athletic. So, him climbing the fence, they made it seem like this guy's like an ultra genius athlete, as like he's so smart and so athletic to
Yeah,
climb the
right.
fence to get into war games. So that was just like a little nitpick. Like, I don't think that was needed, but
Yeah.
cool. I guess we got the visual of Roman coming off the top of the War Games, which was pretty neat. Then we get the part where Punk saves Roman from a massive tsunami. Bloodline starts to get back on the same page once they do that, and they all surround Solo. Solo gets hit with a couple super kicks, big haluva kick, go to sleep, spear, nice way to cap off the match. And you
Mhm.
still see there's still tension, obviously, but for one night, Jason, CM Punk and Roman Reigns got on the same page. And I guess the question coming out of all this is, what is the favor that CM Punk is going to ask of Paul Heyman after helping out the Bloodline in this match against the new Bloodline?
Yeah, that's a question because Roman doesn't have a title, right? So it's not a championship match. Um, I honestly, the only thing I can think of is that I feel like such a big part of CM Punk's story, and not just CM Punk the character, but Phil Brooks, is this lack of WrestleMania main event that's been eluding him. And I think Roman Reigns has become the modern day Mr. WrestleMania, where he's kind of just like slotted into that role. So he's not the favor of I want my WrestleMania main event against Roman Reigns. Um, could that be the direction? Very potentially. I think that right now it's certainly my best guess. Do you have anything?
I think the main event is a good idea. The only thing that would make me kind of question it, just being against Roman Reigns, is like, then it would be more about getting the WrestleMania main event than a beef with Roman Reigns. Where I
Right.
think if it's going to involve Roman Reigns, it has to have uh
More
something
stakes
to
to
do.
it.
Yeah, it has to have more stakes to it. It has to mean something more than just, I'm going to get the WrestleMania main event, win or lose, doesn't matter. I got my main
Yeah.
event. I think he would have to want to go after Roman Reigns. So it leads me to a couple of things. I do think if I think there's a case where it's Roman is clearly going after the title,
Mhm.
but the thing Paul Heyman told him is if Roman ever gets that title again, I want first dibs. Like, I want
Yeah.
the first match against Roman for the title. That, or it's even sooner, and the favor is he wants a world title match against Gunther. And does Paul Heyman have the swing? And is if so, does he want the world title match with Paul Heyman in his corner? Because he
Interesting.
asked for a favor from Paul Heyman. Does he get the world title match and say, "I want you in the corner"? And that's going to cause tension between Roman and
Interesting.
Punk, having Paul in the corner of Punk. And then that could lead to Punk winning the World Heavyweight Championship, maybe with Paul Heyman in the corner helping him out. And now that the brands are kind of blurred, do we get Punk Roman for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania as one of the main events? Because that feels like a big main event. You got Punk and
I like
Roman,
it. You
main
sold
event
me.
of night one, and then you could do Rock Cody, main event of night two. I feel like that is the better direction than a Punk Rollins. But like you said, if they go with Gunther Seth first, and the favor doesn't have to do with that,
Mhm.
then I could see Seth winning and then Punk going on to face Seth. The question is that then the main event of WrestleMania? Or is Seth doing a separate thing and they still do Punk Roman just without the title? It's
Right.
interesting. There's a lot of elements at play here for this main event, but I think what it does is I think this whole bloodline thing kind of separates Roman from, I think, a Rock match at this upcoming WrestleMania. I think if The Rock does come back, it's going to be against Cody one on one, and it's going to be a full circle thing of what Rock did with the light, or what, not the lighter, but that was a speculation, but whatever Rock put in Cody's hand,
Mhm.
could have been a lighter, could have been whatever. We don't know what he put in Cody's hand.
Yeah.
But I do think, with that being said, this favor could be a long-term thing. Like we said, it
Yes.
could be the long-term thing of when Roman gets the championship, I want first dibs. Or it could be something that doesn't get acknowledged, no pun intended, for, a year. And randomly Punk could be like, no, this is the favor, and you got to do this.
Oh
And
my
again, it's
God,
a favor from Paul Heyman. So that's where it's
it's
interesting.
CM Punk. He's cashing in his favor in the bank.
He just has it in a briefcase. It just has Paul Heyman's face on it.
Yeah. It's just Heyman
um,
in the bank.
yeah.
Oh man.
So
Yeah.
who knows?
I
There's a lot of
think
things you could do with this favor. I'm curious to see if it's something immediate or if it's something they hold on to for a while.
right. I like that idea a lot. I love the idea of the storytelling of where are Paul Heyman's loyalties? Is it with the tribal chief? Is it with CM Punk? And really telling that story for the next couple of months. I think that makes a lot of sense. I would be excited to see it. Roman being in the world title picture kind of feels like a step down to me. So I don't know about that. But he also, Cody's in the WWE picture. So maybe he has to be in the other world title.
Right. I think if you have, like, Punk winning it, I think will help in that kind of, like, the world heavyweight title is kind of been in like an upper mid card slot, I guess, where they give it to a lot of wrestlers who are on the come up. I think if you have Punk in that slot and you have Punk face Reigns for it,
Mm-hmm.
or even have, if you want to do Rollins versus Punk, I think whatever match they decide on will elevate that title to
Yes.
being on the same level of the WWE Championship, at least momentarily.
Right. No,
I
I
do
can
think,
agree.
like, realistically probably won't be on that level if the WWE Championship is going to be Cody Rhodes versus The Rock. Because that nothing's going to top that. That's like the main event. But you are going to make the World Heavyweight Championship feel important if you have Punk, Roman, or Seth involved in
Mhm.
that picture.
Yeah, I agree. I'm looking forward to it. Any other thoughts on the War Games or Survivor Series as a whole?
Yeah, as we wrap up the year, this is the question I wanted to pose to you. Where does Survivor Series rank as far as WWE PLEs throughout the year? Where does this kind of land on the totem pole here?
Um, I think it's mid. Um, I think it's pretty low to be honest with you. Like
What
I
shows
don't
would you say are definitely, like, you can 100% say are better than this Survivor Series?
from this calendar year.
Yes,
Well, definitely WrestleMania 40 is number one, right? I don't think anything you could surpass that.
100%.
Um, I mean Royal Rumble's always pretty good. Um, you have Bad Blood. I thought was pretty good. With Punk and Drew. Money in the Bank. I thought was a really great show. Uh, SummerSlam. Like that's 4 or 5. How many have we had?
We've had a lot. We've had a decent amount because
I'm
there's
trying to
still
think. Yeah.
Bash in Berlin, Backlash, Clash at the Castle,
Right. Okay.
Elimination Chamber. I got to push back. I think this was better than the Royal Rumble this year. I thought the Royal Rumble was kind of lackluster overall. I thought the men's Rumble was kind of underwhelming. I thought the women's one was pretty good.
Mhm.
I will say that. Um, but again, that was like that and Bad Blood were shows where they had really strong openers that might have carried like the view of the show. But if you look at the rest of the card for
Yeah.
both Bad Blood and Rumble, it was very lackluster throughout.
I just think in
But
terms of memorable
I do think
moments,
they were
yeah.
fine shows. I think the thing that Survivor Series has going for it is that it had a really strong main event, which I think outside of WrestleMania, um, SummerSlam, and I'll even give Backlash France because that was like a really
Oh
fun,
yeah.
solid main event. I think this is one of the stronger main events, and it also had one of my favorite matches of the year, honestly, which was the IC title match. Like I think I'm going to be putting that on like a top 10 WWE matches of the year. Like I really enjoyed that match a lot. So I think it honestly lands in like a slightly upper tier. Like I don't know. Like other than like some of the bigger shows, I do think this is on the upper end of the list. Like if it's on the upper half of the year end list.
Right.
I wouldn't put it, I don't think I would put Money in the Bank, Clash at the Castle, Bad Blood, Elimination Chamber. I don't think I'd put those shows above Survivor Series. I guess it
Mhm.
really comes down to Saturday night's main event, if that show's good or not. And I also think this is slightly above Royal Rumble. So if Saturday night's main event is better than this, then maybe there's an argument that it's mid or lower. But for now, I think this is at least top 3 or 4 for me.
Saturday night's main event like an official PLE because it used to be like a network special, right? Like so it's not on like NBC, right? Where is it?
It is. It's on NBC, but I think they're counting it as a PLE because they're going to book it like a PLE,
Yeah.
and they have it on a Saturday. So I'm going to put it in the PLE category. But yeah, I guess it's only 2 weeks away, so maybe they're not counting it. But I
I don't
think
know. I mean, none of it's paper. Like my point is, if you didn't have Peacock, could you watch it? Right? I think that's. I don't know.
yeah, you can. I think it's on NBC. I think
Okay.
yeah.
So either way, I mean, it's gonna be a fine show. A fine show. Um, All right. Well, I think that does it for our War Games recap. Of course, we'll have Monday Night Raw tonight and reactions coming later for so stick around for our reactions to Monday Night Raw. We are on the road to Saturday night's main event, and then of course, Royal Rumble not that far away. Um, as far as
Netflix debut.
yeah, a lot to get through. A lot to get through. So, all right, Will, thank you so much. And any final thoughts?
Yeah, just stay tuned for more top rope takes. We're probably going to be doing some year-end conversations, I
Yes.
imagine, talking about what our favorite shows were this year. That's why I kind of want to give you a teaser how we're
Ooh.
feeling at the end there. So, you know, what is our favorite shows? What's our favorite matches? Definitely stay tuned for all of that because we're definitely going to have thoughts. And we're also going to be probably predicting what 2025 will hold for wrestling. So
Oh yeah.
be on the
All
lookout for that.
righty. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you all next time.
Peace.